Hi, my name is Chris Eddy. I'm a software engineer for Hyphen, and today we're going to take a tour of the BitWackr compression deduplication product for Windows. It runs on both 2003 and 2008 Windows Server, and we're going to be actually running it today on a Windows 2008 server. Right mouse click and open it up in this way. So let's go ahead and start that first here. And the GUI opens up and you can see the functions that we have here, all the different tabs. All these tabs here have different functionalities. You can see the capacities that you have, the volumes. You can configure emails to get and back any warnings or critical messages that need to be sent. You can configure encryption. You can see which cards are installed on the box for BitWackr and what their health is, what models are running. And you can also see the configuration for how the actual volume has been configured. Before you actually start the application and create a volume, you really first need to have the proper disks set up. So if you go to Computer Manager, Manage just like this, and go to Storage Management, we have two disks that we're going to use. LBA, and hash are generally a few gigs, and they should be initially partitioned onto a low latency disk. And we have on this disk an SSD, and that is disk 2 in this case. So when we configure our volume, we're going to configure those two partitions, the LBA and hash, onto disk 2. And the data partition we're going to put onto disk 1. Your SSD drive, where your LBA is, since that disk, the LBA is a critical component for the data, and you want to make sure that that disk is mirrored and arrayed. And your data partition should be separate from the other two partitions. That's the best practices. So when we configure, we just want to remember that disk 2 is the disk we want for LBA and hash in our case, and disk 1 in this case is the partition that we're going to use for our data. So now that we know we have that down, let's go back to our GUI, and to actually create the volume when you come in on the Volume tab, so we haven't created any volumes yet, and the main function at this point is just to simply click and add the volume. And the new window will open up. And in this screen here, there's several different things that need to be configured. The first is what you want your volume name to be for the volume that you are going to be creating. And in this case, we'll just call it simply BitWackr. Type that name in there. And this is going to be applied as the label to the volume that is created as well. So the items that you really see here are the capacity, the disk number, the disk type, whether it's basic or dynamic, and a clear drive. And then you have all the different partitions that we're going to be using. So at the top here we have the data storage physical capacity. And the data storage, that's the one we're going to be having on disk 1. From here you can see there's several different sizes you can select. The first, and these are all in gigabytes, the first one is 1024, 2048, 4096, 8192, or 16384. Depending on which physical size you select, down below, your hash table, LBA table, and the virtual BitWackr volume size are all determined based off of what physical capacity you choose. So for example, if I choose 1024 gigs for my physical, the hash table storage is going to be 2.7 gigs. The LBA table storage will be 0.8 gigs. And the BitWackr volume that's going to be created will be 5,120 gigs. If I choose the 16,384 as my physical disk capacity, in that case my hash table would be 42.5 gigs, LBA table would be 12.6 gigs, and the BitWackr volume that would be created is going to be 81,920 gigs. But for now, when we create this one, in this example, we're going to start with the 1024 physical and end up creating a 5,120 or 5 terabyte BitWackr volume. Next, we will need to select which disks we're using. So for the data, we were going to use disk 1, and the drop-down shows you which are usable. So we'll select disk 1 for that. Hash table, we're going to put those on disk 2, and LBA we'll put on disk 2 as well. So the LBA and the hash table are on disk 2, and the data is on disk 1. Now we're going to select the disk type. You can either select basic or dynamic, where we have all these default to basic, and clear drive. If there's any other partitions on them, on those drives that you don't need, then you can select clear drive. And if there are partitions, those will be deleted when the BitWackr creates those volumes. It will warn you if there are other partitions on those drives before you actually do clear it, but we know there's none, so I selected the clear drive. Now when it creates the BitWackr volume, you can also assign a drive letter to it, and that's this option down here, the Mount Compressed Drive As. You can select one of the drive letters to assign a drive letter, or you can, at the bottom, if you don't want it to be formatted and assign a drive letter, you can just leave it as a raw drive. For now, in this example, we'll set it as a drive M. So in essence, when we submit this, we should create a volume at the end of a BitWackr volume of 5,120 gigs, and we'll assign it a drive letter M. So once everything is configured, you can go ahead and click OK. So we've got the name, the drives, the drive letter, and our sizes, and we can submit this request. And it will go off and start creating the volume, and it will show you as a progress indicator how the process is going. In this case, we selected a 1 terabyte drive, and with the SSD drive that we're using, this is fairly fast. It should take less than a minute to initialize and format the BitWackr volume for a final of 5 terabyte. While this is formatting here, I'm going to move this over so we can actually see the storage management and what's going on here. It's created, as you can see here, it's created our data 1024 partition. The LBA and hash partitions are on disk 2, formatting those partitions according to our BitWackr needs, and eventually we'll see here the BitWackr volume be displayed on the storage management as well. It's probably about 80% done. And there's the disk showing now. We have a 5,120 gig BitWackr volume showing. And since we said that we want to assign a drive letter M, the BitWackr will now format this drive and assign the drive letter. It's now formatting, as you see here. And it's assigned the label BitWackr to it and assigned the drive letter. That's been completed. Okay, now our BitWackr shows that it's mounted and it's ready to be used. So we actually right now, if we want, we can go, this disk is now usable. So from our 1024 gig data partition, we've now created a 5,119 gig BitWackr volume to use. So actually, if we want to go out here and actually start to use that right now, it's now usable and ready to go. That's the BitWackr 2008 presentation.